No comments. Okay, someone's typing. It's still waiting for a comment to come. But let me just start by, I think now, just welcome you, and I will address that comment just now. So hello everybody, this is our second class. This class I had no technical difficulties, and I apologize once again. Most of those technical difficulties were really due to my laptop. So I'm using a different laptop now, but things seem to be running much smoother. Just to address the class, I had a student ask why we're not using Zoom. And I said to them, but just to tell you all, I said that this platform, you don't have to download any software, so it's easier to access for people. And also it is slightly more, well, let's say it's slightly easier on bandwidth. And because of that, I find it to be a better platform. From that, it is not the most, doesn't have all the nice features and stuff, but it has enough to do what we want to do. So that's the reason why we're using this platform, Zoom. Sorry, Skype, and not Zoom. So I'm going to continue using it until it stops working. But just to let you know, this is the platform. The same thing we're going to be doing is that I will send the link out just before the class, just like we did today. So you will get the link. So you just have to look at your announcements just before the class to find the link. And the link will go out and the class will happen. Okay, so I got one comment. I got the same comment. Someone emailed me this. The first comment I got is that the sources for the opinion paper, there were less sources for CI than there were for BI. And that's true because this is a BI course, so the focus needs to be on BI, not CI. So I was expecting 60 to 70% of your content to focus on BI and 40 to 30% to focus on CI. So there is an equal split. So if you wrote less on CI, that is what I wanted. But don't stress too much about the exact numbers. But yes, there were fewer sources on CI because it's not the course that we're doing. That's another course that's run. I think Mr. Niemand used to run that course. I'm not sure if he still runs that course. Okay, but just another thing that I didn't make clear. Sorry, I want to try and mute. I think Nicola, I muted you. There was just a bit of noise coming through. Sorry, and I do want to apologize once again. My children have finished bathing, and they are around, but they're going to be going further away from us now. So if you do hear some noise, please take note. I do have a family, and if you have a family and you understand this time is a bit busy with bathing and children are tired and all that, so I do just apologize for that. If you really can't hear me, then please just communicate with me and I can try and reduce the amount of noise that comes from them. Okay. If we can just, I think it's better if we keep the call, mute yourselves, and maybe if we communicate with me via the chat. It's maybe not the best way to do it. It's not that interactive, but it helps in terms of keeping the channel clear of distractions and noise. And then I can use the chat to communicate if you've got questions or comments. I will also pause and maybe ask you if there's opportunity to speak, you can speak. So I think if we just do that, wonderful. So let's begin. So the class notes are available on Blackboard. They went up just before I put the link up. The reason why they go up just before I put the link up is that I don't really want you to use them as sources for your opinion paper. The idea is that you kind of do the groundwork for the class. You do your opinion paper. If I put the class notes up, say, a few hours before, it would be unfair because you would just look at my class notes and you'd submit. So anyone that submits the opinion paper after Hoppers 5, and this is what I do with all my courses, is that I will consider that you have an opportunity to access the course notes. So if there's things that are written in my class slides and you write it in your opinion paper and you've submitted it late, I would assume you took it from me and not from your own words. And if you wrote the same things and you handed them in on time, but before Hoppers 5, I assume that comes from you. So even better for you. So please just the notes, once again, are not really a source for your opinion papers. It's just you need to do your own prep work. Okay, so wonderful. So let's look at class 2. So the first thing that we want to look at today is to clarify the difference between BI and CI, which by now I think you've written quite a lot of words, but I think this is a summary, and this is kind of important. This is one important angle. There are many aspects you can look at. However, this one I think is quite, I like this approach to compare the differences. By comparing them, I really think it's important to look at the environments that you're working in, the difference between BI and CI. So if we all know the basic environments are micro, market, and macro environment, those are the basic environments. I'm sure you've seen those before. So you'll know that the micro environment sits inside the organization. And these deal with things like your mission, your vision, your mission, your objectives, enterprise functions. So I just want to zoom in. I hope it's easier to see now. I hope that's better. Okay, so that's the differences between the two. Sorry, I just want to actually appeal. Sorry, I know we've started. I am recording this, but can I ask another student, someone who knows they're going to spend the whole time in this class, they're not going to leave early, to also record it? Because I'm having trouble retracting my recording. I did it in the last class, and I don't know where I found my recording. So I can ask you, it only needs to be, so if someone can just also record it, because then I'll pull, if I can't find my recording, I can pull your recording for this class. So I'm just appealing to someone else to please record the class so that I can take that recording. I don't know why I couldn't find my recording, but I have a problem with it. But basically, in a nutshell, this is important. This sometimes, as it sits, is anywhere between 10 and 15 mark question. Just looking at the environments. If you spoke about this in your opinion paper, great. If you didn't talk about it in your opinion paper, that's also fine. There are a lot of other differences, and we're going to talk about them. But I think as a very useful high-level summary, I like to use this one. And so that's why this I find is important. This I'm taking straight off the notes that are available to you. So you don't have to draw it unless it's for your own understanding, or even screenshot it. It's there. It's sitting there in your notes. Okay. So if we look at those three environments quickly, we've got the micro environment, we spoke about internal. We've got the market environment. And this environment is a little bit more complicated with the difference between BI and CI, because some things are purely in the CI space and some things you still have control over in BI. Depends on your company and the way your systems are set up. So one example here is suppliers. So some companies have access to your suppliers' systems, and you can use their data on availability of products. So some companies have systems set up where you can actually tap straight into your suppliers database, and you know exactly what's happening in their stock, their inventory. There's certain information that you have, data that you have control over, that you can use to make your decisions. So let me just give you an example. Imagine you are now selling masks for COVID-19. And if you're selling masks for COVID-19, you might want to make sure that you have enough masks. And if you see a surprise running low on stock and you weren't thinking about ordering till maybe next month, you might just decide, oh no, I'm just going to put an earlier order in or bigger order in to compensate, because I know my supply is running low and I'm not sure when they're going to get stock in again. So that's just an example of how your market environment can be used as BI. Okay, sometimes the systems are integrated, you have access to their systems, and you can use that information to help you make smarter decisions. Okay, but your competitors, unless you have a system that tracks your competitors as well, but most companies don't, they just watch their competitors, but maybe they're tracking something. It also depends on the market or the kind of business you're in. Then if you're tracking your competitors directly, this is where it gets a bit gray. Maybe it can be said as part of CI, but it is based on your competitors. So, and then you've got your macro environment, and that talks about the economic conditions. So, I mean, we're in a wonderful place at the moment because with COVID-19 and the lockdown and stuff, the economic conditions have drastically changed. Certain industries are under huge strain. Some industries are doing all right, and some industries have profited. Not many, but some have profited, are doing better. Technology is changing. People are starting to work from home, remote access. Things are changing there. Social and cultural things have changed. We're not gathering together. Politically, there's a lot of opposition to the government in terms of the lockdown and the rulings on things, and people are getting upset. And some people are praising them, some people are upset. So there's various things happening politically. And the physical environment, that's like the weather and stuff like that. Well, it's winter. I don't really know how that affects everything, but anyway. And then internationally, well, a lot of countries are in trouble. Economies are challenged. Lots of money is being lent. So if you think about all these things, we're in a very interesting time. So that's part of CI. So companies would really need to start tracking that. And this is very important that companies, it doesn't matter who you are, even if you're a small company that's selling something here locally or manufacturing something locally, etc., you need to take these things into consideration. So another difference that that's not necessarily in the notes, but you can talk about, I think is also quite important, is when we talk about the difference between BI and CI, when we start looking at tracking these things, when we're dealing with BI, it's largely quantitative. So I think you've done a research methodology work where you understand about research methods. So quantitative talks about numbers and figures. So the dashboards are set up against KPIs. KPIs are numbers. There's a target. It's a number. How many units you manufacture a day? How many people you hire in a day? How many? Every organization's got different numbers that they're watching, that they're following, and that's BI. CI is largely qualitative. So I read something in the newspaper that said China was going to be lending money to this particular country. I don't know, Ghana. We do business with Ghana. How does that impact our business deals that are happening now? So that's qualitative. It's you're not looking at specific indicators. It's more generalized, and there's more assumptions made with the CI. Okay, and that's also another quantitative and qualitative. So BI is largely quantitative, and CI is largely qualitative. So that's another nice way of explaining it. And then when I talk about those numbers, I'm talking about the analysis and the units of analysis when you're analyzing them. So to set up a BI system is quite useful and quite easy in comparison to setting up a CI, whatever you want to set up. I don't know if it's a manual approach or if you're trying to have text mining or machines that go out and do machine learning things that search for stuff on the internet and come back and feed information back to you. It's a little bit more challenging and it's a lot more creative to try and analyze CI data as it is to analyze BI data. You can do very cool things with BI data, and you can get very creative, and you can make it very complicated or simple. But CI definitely has a much more qualitative approach. So that's the main differences between the two. Is there anyone that wants to write something at this point? while looking at this picture. Or say something.
Doc, I just found it quite interesting how you are putting it. I didn't see it in that way.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it also took me some time to see it that way. So it's not obvious, but I found it quite useful to look at the environments, which environments are they working in, and work with those environments. But thank you for the comment. Also, what came later on after doing it a lot is looking at the analysis, and I spoke about the difference between quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative being BI and qualitative being CI. So that's another thing that I picked up along the way. That's not necessarily in the sources. I can't really find sources on this. Maybe I should try and see if there are any new ones. But yeah, those are. So that's just a high level summary. So we're going to now break this down into some slides. So let's move on from there. So CI, this is some basics on CI. So we spoke about that it focused on the external environment. And in CI, there's three main processes. And to be honest with you, these processes are quite similar to the last week we spoke about BI's 4 processes. And CI, we talked about 3 processes, and they're very similar. But just for learning it, for an exam, well, not exam, a final assessment, if you want to learn it, but that's also open book at this point. It's going to be open book anyway. But this is one thing you can also use. So there's gathering of information, which we know you have to go and gather it. You've got to convert it into information, something that you can use, and then you need to use it for making decisions. It's pretty straightforward and pretty standard. And very important in CI is to look at risks before they become obvious. So there's a lot of things, to look at risks. So, I mean, if we just look at where we're sitting now in South Africa with the alcohol ban and the tobacco ban, if you own a bottle store, you are now going to be watching, thinking, what can you do? Are you, it's going to be very interesting for your business. SAB now have to produce more non-alcoholic beer. Maybe they should look at launching new lines of non-alcoholic beer. They have to look at their turnaround time. How long does it take SAB, or it's now Ambev? It's now been bought out by Budweiser's holding company. But how long does it take to develop a new product? Is it too slow to react? If we start now and we know that it takes, with the marketing and the branding and the formulation and everything and the testing, maybe it takes 8 months. In 8 months, if we launch to market and they take the ban away, what is that going to mean? Should we just go for it anyway? Are people now going to move over anyway onto non-alcoholic beer? In the cigarette world, it's also fascinating. There's a lot of illegal tobacco products that are sold. What are the tobacco producers going to do? I don't even know I don't know much about the tobacco ban, to be honest with you, but vaping, I don't know if there's a ban on vaping. Can they look at doing other things like vaping? Well, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. But CI has been around for a lot longer than BI, and really its roots are rooted in military. So originally, CI was a militaristic process of trying to work out what your opponent was going to do. So a long time ago, and still today, even today, it's obviously they use a lot. It's all about strategy and looking at the strengths and weaknesses of your opponents and your own strengths and weaknesses and coming up with a strategy. And a very good read to understand more about the history of this is Sun Tzu's Art of War, which is a very interesting read to get more of a background on competitive intelligence. But also just a disclaimer, this is not a competitive intelligence course. It's a BI course, so we're just going to touch on it very briefly. But really to look at strategy. When you're with your business, who is your competitors? What strategy are they using? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How can you play your weaknesses against their strengths, etc.? Or what can you do to outsmart's maybe not the right word, to outshow your competitor. You know, how can you move? And how quickly can you move as well into something different? Okay, so another thing is benchmarking is also very important. So benchmarking is a very important exercise. So if you're in an industry where there's lots of competition, this is very important. Say, for instance, you are now a pizza restaurant, maybe, or takeaway joint, pizza takeaway joint. This is a very competitive market at the moment. So you have to look at what are your competitors doing. You know, are you going for price? Are you going for quality? Who is your market sector that you want to sell to? Are you more budget orientated? Are you maybe a bit more upmarket? What is your competitive advantage over your competitors? You know, where do you get your products from? You know, all these things. What do your pizzas taste like? You know, do they compete? All these things are very, very important. And I hope I'm not making anyone hungry talking about this, but this is very important, benchmarking. So you have to look around you all the time. It's very, very important that you benchmark against your competitors so that you're always staying ahead of the game and that you're able to come up with strategies. So if a pizza company starts on a special, buy one, get one free or whatever, or get a free Coca-Cola or who knows what, that you have to think, well, do I react to this campaign? Do we also run a special? You know, how will this maybe impact my business? Am I going to wait and see to run a special? What can I do in the meantime? All these things are things that you need to ask yourself, and very important. So another thing is that Fleischer, in this 2003 source, identified the difference between BI and CI, is that BI also has a stronger focus on IT. So BI systems are very important. It's very data intensive, very quantitative, lots of data that can, depending on your business, on what business you got. But if you've got a manufacturing plant, or if you've got a internet service provider company, or whatever you're doing, there's data that you need to track on a regular basis to make sure that you're meeting your targets that you want to meet, so that you can remain, you know, that if you meet these targets, you're going to be productive, and if you're productive, you're going to be profitable, and if you're profitable, you're going to succeed. So yeah, the focus being on IT in BI as compared to CI, you might not have as many systems in place. I mean, you can have a CI system, but to the level of system investment will not be as much as on the BI front. And a specialized field of business intelligence, also known as competitive intelligence, focuses solely on external competitive environments. So this is an interesting wording, and this is about semantics. So some people see all intelligence in a business as business intelligence. And this is why I wanted you to only use my sources. So some people say, you know, business intelligence is anything that your business uses to get an edge over its competitor. And with that very broad definition, BI, from that perspective, then CI will be a subset of business intelligence. It's a form of business intelligence, according to some. But for this course, I really wanted to separate BI and CI, to say, no, we're not necessarily calling CI a subset of BI. We're calling CI and BI two different things. Ultimately, they have the same goal, to help your business thrive and prosper and be profitable and grow, but we are separating them. Okay, so that's just that's one way of semantically looking at BI, but that's not really the focus that we want. We want to try and stay away from that. So some people see any intelligence that benefits your business is BI, and therefore CI is a subset. Okay, otherwise. And that focuses on the external competitive environment. Information is gathered on your competitors and decisions are made in CI. Okay. Don't see any questions in the text box, so I'm just going to continue. Okay, so BI also can be described as decision support systems. So remember, we spoke that it's got a strong IT focus. And another term is decision support systems. So being a systems obviously has a strong IT focus. And with decision support systems, it's very important that these systems, obviously, like as this descriptor says, are set up to make decisions. But what you need to make a decision is you need to use KPIs. You need to have key performance indicators. So if I told you now that the pizza joint down the road from where I lived had an income that night, not a profit, just an income of 15,000 Rand. If I gave you that information, it's not very useful to you because you've got no context. You don't understand their profit, their business model properly. You don't know what their markups are. You don't know what their margins are. You don't know what their hidden expenses are. So making 15,000 Rand doesn't help you. So what I mean by this is that you have to understand the business to set up KPIs. So maybe you know that every night before you walk in, every night you need to make a minimum of 10,000 Rand. You've done your maths and your figures. On average, you need to make 10,000 Rand. Also depends on each product because the profitability cannot be completely standardized across each pizza that they make in the pizza place. Some might be slightly more profitable than others, but generally there's a strong goal, objective you try and work towards in terms of profitability. But you need to know these things. And then you can set up KPIs. So the information on its own, just having a lot of data coming through your business doesn't mean anything until you put it to context. And the context are the KPIs. And you need to understand the business model and the profitability and your averages. And you need to understand things better to set up KPIs. And to set up, if you've got good KPIs, you've got good indices or things that you can run your business against. And it's very important, these KPIs. And obviously, as time progresses and your understanding of the business progresses, these KPIs will evolve. So if you sit down with a bunch of consultants or business experts and you set up KPIs for your restaurant or whatever it is, shoe, boutique or whatever it is, and they don't evolve over 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, that they're not evolving, then you're not understanding your business better. So the more you start learning about your business, the more these things are going to evolve. And it's very important that you set up good KPIs, and then you can monitor your performance against good targets. And if you're doing that, you then will be able to more effectively manage your business and make better business decisions. Okay, and then just a definition of intelligence is the ability to find interrelationship with presented facts in such a way that it guides your action towards desired goals. So what's very important here is the relationship. So maybe if I've got a restaurant business, there must be a relationship maybe between the day of the week and my income for the night. Maybe on some days it's busier. Who knows? Maybe Friday night's busier. Maybe it's not. I don't know. You'll know your business. So the day of the week has an impact. Also the weather. Maybe when the weather's very cold, people don't go to restaurants. People order more food to have at home. So that's going to affect your business. So then when the weather changes, you expect more takeaway. Maybe you need to organize better delivery services, or I don't know what, but you can react. And there's a relationship. It's these relationships that are crucial. To find these relationships that can really help organizations set things up just to be more profitable and better. Okay. Okay, let's carry on. So business intelligence has different meanings related to the use of the term intelligence. The primary, less frequent, is the human intelligence capacity applied in a business affairs or activities. So this is a more general definition for business intelligence. So it's human intelligence capacities applied in a business. Okay. So obviously, all these things that we set up, there has to be some human thinking and planning around them. These KPIs that we spoke about are developed over time and with human understanding. There's maybe some general rules or laws, but as time progresses, the human capacity to take this information and do something is very important when looking at business intelligence. So the intelligence of business is a fairly new field investigation, and you need to apply human cognitive faculty. And that just means thinking and artificial intelligence technologies to come up with something. So it's a combination. You can't just, like I say, you can't talk to Amazon or a big data warehouse provider or service software as a service company or someone who can offer you something and say, you know what, you go and you sort my business out for me. You get your computers to work their magic. There's no magic. It takes human understanding to set up these KPIs, to understand the environment. And once you understand your environment, then you can set up a good BI system. So if you walk into a new business tomorrow and you don't know anything about it, if you set up a BI system at the same time, you must realize that your BI system might have a lot of flaws and maybe not give you what you want because it lacks that human element to go and understand things. Only after time you start learning things and you start applying the rules that you've learned in your human mind to your computer systems through the KPIs, whatever you're setting up, then you're going to come up with systems that can then create decision support intelligence. Okay, this is a figure or a diagram. It's come up in many exams, and really it's just a sort of flow of what really happens. So let's just have a look at this. Let's unpack this quickly. So if we look at this picture from left to right, it starts out with data and databases. Then it goes to a warehouse or storage solution, and then there are tools. Okay, at the end. So when we look over here in this picture, it's a very basic picture, but it's saying quite a lot, is that you've got different things happening on the data side. There's different points of entry where you're collecting information. Also, if you look at the pictures, they're also different. There's different pictures. There's like yellow cubes that have more than one cube in them. Then there's like green cubes that have like only one cube and blue cubes that have one cube. So these also can speak to the complexity of these collection points. So a cube has 3 axes, X, Y, and Z, means there might be 3 dimensions to your data. And there can be lots of dimensions to your data when you're collecting it. That's just based around the complexity of the information. So from the sales, you might have very complex information that you're receiving, or you might have very basic information that you're receiving. So that's just on the sales. In the supply chain, there's less complexity with that information. And same with the call centers. You've got 3 different sources feeding you information in this diagram. Okay. So it's important to note that there's different sources of information, and they can be set up differently, and they can have more variables in them. Some will have less and some will have more variables. And these are being fed. You can see they're funneled. It actually looks like a funnel into some, they call it data warehouse, but some form of data storage. Okay, data warehouse is a form of data storage. And you see in these, they're building cubes. So the yellow is they're matching point of sales information with the yellow and green inventory. That's part of the supply chain. Or in the next block, they've got the same thing. They've got point of sales with inventory. Then in the next block, they've got inventory with customer information from the call center. There's green and blue and green and blue. So the colors are also trying to show you that different bits of information can be put together in different ways. Okay, so there's some, at this data warehouse, there's some aggregated information. They're already storing it in a specific format because they have some KPIs, they know certain things, and they're looking for very specific things. So as this information comes in, it's organized in a specific way inside this data warehouse. Okay. Then the next thing that's happening to the right is there's these wheels or these cogs. And in these wheels and cogs, there's some insight happening. That's where there's some understanding. So there's some process. Those are trying to show that they process this information. And then after the information's been processed, it can be used for a number of things. So this is a static graph. The first one is a graph. which is a visual representation of possibly the same report which is below. So it's just showing you, maybe it's your daily sales or each day of the week, and you'll see that some days are better and some days are worse, and you'll have these like towers, these tall buildings and small buildings, and you can see how your sales were over the week. The report is the same thing, but it's in numbers. So just remember, some people might be very visual. They might want to see something. So if you show them a picture, instantly they understand. Some people might be quite analytical and they say, oh, okay, well, the picture's nice, but I want to know the exact numbers. Give me the report. So it's just a different way of representing the same thing. Then there's an alert setup. Now, the alert has to be set up via KPI. You can't have alert without a KPI. So maybe when you're at a store working in a let's say you're working in a boutique, a shoe store in a nice mall, Mall of Africa or Sandton City or somewhere, who knows, doesn't matter, but somewhere, and you're selling shoes, you could have an alert system that as soon as you've sold 50,000 rands worth of shoes for the day, that a red light flashes very brightly that everyone can see. And maybe that's a KPI that you set up. So that red light flashing tells you, you know what, well done, guys, you've made your basic target for the day. And who knows what that means to you, whether you're going to get a bonus or whether the business is just doing well, but you can set something like that up. Okay, then forecasting is another thing you can do. So alerts, reports, and graphs. Graphs and reports are historical. Alerts are real time as it happens. Forecasting looks at the future. And you can actually do some forecasting and say, you know what, if we carry on with these kind of sales figures, we've got 3 weeks of data during lockdown in our boutique shoe store in Mall of Africa. And we now have an understanding what things might be like over the next few months. If we carry on like this, you know, how profitable will we be, or how much of a loss will we run at? You know, what's going to happen with our business? And then you can work out, well, how long can we carry this loss? And you can then make decisions on, if you need to make decisions, how long are we going to pay this rent over here? Should we look for a cheaper rent? Do we need to downsize our staff? Can we find a different location in the same mall that's more cost effective, or whatever? Or maybe you're doing well, you want to grow your business over the lockdown, you know, then you can do that. Or do you need to look at selling stuff online using a channel like Super Paylist or another company to sell your shoes through online, somehow outsource selling your shoes to somebody else, you know, and try and generate profit another way? So what are you going to do? And then the other thing is data mining. Now, data mining, in my mind, should be at the top because it's looking at historical information, and it's actually a process. So to get all of this data warehouse up to scratch and to make understanding, you need to mine the data. And by mining it, you process it to come up with something meaningful. Okay, and that's what's happening here in this picture. Are there any questions? Is there anyone that wants to ask a question at this point? Someone is typing. I'm just going to wait for that type to come through. Neo, I think you're typing. If you are, we're waiting for you. If you're not, then I'm not going to wait much longer. I see someone's trying to type something. Okay, so I've got something here. So what's the difference between data mining and data collection? Okay, well, data collection, data mining are actually two very different processes. They're not, so it's not like mining in the gold. If we look at other mineral resources, to mine it means you go and you extract it. Well, it depends. There's different phases to mining as well. So we are looking at the extraction phase. So the one phase is where you take material out of the ground. That would be like collecting material, whether it be rock that's got gold in or something, you have to take it out the ground. So the miners will go and take the stuff out the ground. Okay. Then there's an extraction process, and that's what we call mining, where you take out of that rock that you've taken out the ground, so other data that's poured in from all these places that you collected, you then go and look through it and you say, I'm looking for very specific things in gold. You're looking for, I don't know, there's gold flakes in the rock. So you have some process to try and extract those gold flakes out of the rock. That's the stuff we're talking about. So in your next OP, you're going to learn the difference between business tools and processes. But one of the processes now, and if you hear this, it's a hint, is ETL. And ETL is extract, transfer, and load. And that would be the collection of data is ETL. It's another process. Mining is where you take insight out of the stuff that you already have. Okay, so ETL will talk to data collection. And then data mining will talk to on the part that once it's being collected and it's put somewhere, then you're going to start looking for it. So it's the same in mining. There's two processes. There's extraction in resource mining like gold and diamonds. You're taking something out the ground. Once you've done that, the next process then is to process it. And that's where you look for the gold. And in the data, you're looking for the insight, the understanding. And that's largely centered around your KPIs. Those will tell you the things we really need to look at. It's like when you start knowing someone, let's say it's someone, if you are married or your mother or someone you know very well, you the whole time are looking at KPIs. You're trying to understand maybe their feelings, their understanding, their mood. Maybe you know when you hear someone start swearing that you know that they're very upset. It's just an example. It's quite obvious, but you've got a KPI. You're listening to the language the whole time, and then all of a sudden, one or two swear words come out. Then you know, wow, okay, this person's not in a good mood. So let me adjust my behavior when I'm around them. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe they start whistling and singing. You know, this person's in a great mood. It's the same thing. That's those are what KPIs do. And you only know that when you know the person well. Same with the business. You need to understand the business very well. So really the key to any BI business intelligence system is to understand the business well. And from that, you get set up good KPIs. Once you've got good KPIs and you understand the business well, and you start bringing the data in, then you can really start making sense. Okay. So let's go on from that picture. So what are the benefits? So this is a very popular 5-mark question, and it's straightforward. It's not waffling on and rambling on. But the benefits of BI are eliminating guesswork. Okay, so less guessing. Enhancing communication amongst departments. So if you're collecting information, you can see you can also help you communicate better with different departments because you understand what's happening. So if you've got let's say you've got a mining facility and you've got BI in a mining facility. Let's say we look at extraction and refinement of minerals. We just spoke about that. But maybe when the extraction is happening slow, you can talk to them and say, guys, I realized your load, you've only did so many tons today, so many 100 tons you extracted out the ground today, you know. Normally you do double. You know, is everything okay? You know, what's happening? Has this COVID affected your workforce? Do you have less? You know, you can start communicating. So you start watching them, other departments, and you get to understand what's happening there, and you can communicate better. Okay, you can also respond quicker to the market and financial changes. So this is interesting because this largely looks at external things, financial market and the market and financial changes. So that talks about things about your competitor. But if you understand your own business better, it'll help you respond. So you need to know yourself better. Maybe you know that, like I spoke about SAB, maybe they know that it takes the quickest they've ever gone from a product concept to delivering a final product is 6 months. Then they know that if they want to bring a new non-alcoholic beer onto the market with a unique flavor, like a coffee taste or I don't know, something different, then they know that, you know what, is it going to be in time? And if it's not in time, is it going to be worth it? They can start making a decision so that it's helping them respond to what's happening around because they understand themselves well enough. Then the next thing is quite obvious, improve overall performance. So when you're doing BI, you can start asking why. Before you're just asking what happened. You know, it's too late to react. All of a sudden you see this month, oh wow, our turnover is down so badly. And you think, well, what went wrong? What happened? That's a very low level question. Oh no, we sold less things. Okay, fine. But then understanding it doesn't help you understand in future, how do we stop it? But when we understand why did we sell less things, then we can answer the questions about the future. And then we know that, you know what, that we noticed that after Christmas, that, I don't know, people had maybe overspent money. And this is quite straightforward and obvious, but maybe let's talk about something less obvious. Maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, but definitely it'll help you improve if we can ask the why questions. And then when you understand the why questions, you can change. If you ask what just happened, it's too late. It's already happened. But when you can ask that, but then when you ask yourself, why did it happen? So let's look at your marks. Let's say you get to the end of the semester and you see you got a bad mark in a course. The first thing you ask is, what happened? And it's obvious you got a bad mark. The next level is to ask, why did it happen? And if you know why it happened, you know what, every assignment, I didn't read the lecturer's instructions. I did the assignment, I spent a lot of time, but I never read the lecturer's instructions, and I got terrible marks. You see, I understand why now. Because I understand why, the next time I do any work for that lecturer, I will read his instructions because I know why I'm going to get better marks. You understand? So in the past, people were just trying to ask what happened. BR helps you ask why did it happen. And when you understand the why, you can make changes. When you make the changes, if you change, you're going to get different results. Okay. And next to people, in any business, it's the most important resource of an organization. Okay, having information on your business, knowing what's happening inside data and information to understand. So companies need people. Some businesses are virtual. They don't need any people. There are not many of them yet. Who knows, maybe with robotics and drones and stuff, there'll be far more systems and artificial intelligence like cars that can drive themselves. Maybe Uber won't have drivers in the future. Well, definitely, the way we're going, definitely, that's definitely the case. It's just a matter of when. But until then, people are the key. And even then, a robot is not going to set up a robot Uber business. A human has to set that business up and program those robots and generate rules from that robot. It still requires a human. Okay. So I think that's the end of the class. Are there any questions? You have some time to ask questions. You can type away if you've got some questions. So seeing no one, I just want to ask, did you guys get my YouTube video? Does anyone give me some feedback on it? Yes, okay. So the same story from these recordings is that we will upload them onto YouTube so that you can watch it, and you will then be able to use that to help prepare for the final assessments or for whatever purposes to increase understanding. There's Nicole who's typing something. And Billy as well, apparently. Okay, so Nicole says, when you explain how we were supposed to write the OP, it makes sense. When we are on our own, it's something else. Okay, so yes, I mean, I think what you're trying to say is that you're not sure what to do. But then when you come to my class, and the idea is that if you all just listen to my class and then hand an OP, you would just give me back what I say, and it would be boring and repetitive, and you won't learn. So I want you to try and wrap your own heads around a subject. And I want you to try and understand it in your way. When I mark your OPs, I understand it. Okay, so I'm not looking for you to give me back what I gave you. I'm really looking to see, how did you apply yourself? And so if it should make more sense after my class to say, oh, okay, that's what he was that's where he's going on about it. Obviously, you need to use my sources, so be guided by my sources. It's a relevant observation, but please know when I mark Nicole, I'm going to understand that I'm not, that you didn't watch the class, and that I am looking for your interpretation on the subject. But you do need to use my sources and only my sources. So just because you're interpreting it a certain way doesn't mean you can go and use anything you want and say, yeah, but this source says this and this source says that. I want you to wrap your head around the subject. I want you to say, well, how do I make sense of this? The lecturer is giving me this to me. So what? What now? What does that mean? What is the difference between BI and CI? What is significant? What is less significant to me? Maybe you pick up on different things. And so when I mark that, I will understand that. And that's why I want you to go and do this experience by yourself. There's a lot of learning in it that way. So BI tools. So the next question is, when will we cover BI tools? And the answer is in the next class. We're going to look at BI tools and processes. But you need to do the OP first. And there I want you to, and you need to read the instructions. The instructions are very clear and the sources are clear. But you also need to go and see what is the difference between which of the following things are BI tools and which of the following things are BI processes. And in this class, if you watch the video again, when I spoke about the diagram, a lot of what I spoke about was in the diagram, and I didn't go on about which are tools and processes in depth. I gave you some small hints. So if you want some guidance, you can go watch the YouTube video where I discuss that diagram. It will also help your understanding and help you make some sense of things. And it will also help you in the next OP. So that's just a little bit of advice. So someone near wants to know, is it possible that BI outputs can be used as CI inputs and vice versa? So I think definitely they can, because you can't look at your competitor in isolation. So you would also need to look at what you have internally to look at your competitor. So yes, the answer is yes. The short answer is yes. And the reason is that I can't look at my competitor but not look at, so if I'm looking at my competitors, seeing if they're putting things on sale, seeing if they're building new stores, trying to gauge how well are they doing financially, looking in the newspaper to see if they've made any business deals, has the holding company being sold, whatever I'm doing. I can't do that and not look at my own sales figures, my own things. So there's a relationship between the two. You can't do, I think, CI effectively without doing some form of BI. And to do BI without CI effectively also would seem a bit not very fruitful. So it's like one side of the picture. Okay. Is there a penalty for not sticking to the required word count in the OP? So the short answer is yes. The description or the reasoning is that there's a 10% leeway. So we were expecting 2,500, which means you need a minimum of 2,250 words and a maximum of 2,270. If you write too little, I think you haven't tried hard enough to go and get depth. And if you write too much, well then I don't really want to sit and read too much. So when you've got 60 people to mark, it's not nice that you've got someone that wrote 4,000 words. There's going to be a deduction there, because why should you read 4,000 words? It's almost 2 opinion papers in one. So you're making my work a little bit more difficult, and I think that's not ideal. Yeah, so are there any more questions? We've had from Tandek, we've had from Neo, we've had from Appreciate. Is there someone that wants to make a comment or speak? Billy, I see, is typing something. Are there any vocal questions someone wants to? Now's a chance to open up the mic if you want, if you prefer to speak. Billy,
So, Doc,
yes.
since BI will look mostly on internal within the organization, and as you have mentioned that we can use it as CI input. So does it mean that they work hand in hand, or they're two separate entities?
Okay, so they do work. Both the answers are yes. They are separate for this course. Just for this course, maybe other organizations will never separate them. And I understand why, but for this course, we just treat them as separate things.
Oh, all right.
And they do work hand in hand. Like I said, to do one without the other would not be very fruitful. You would kind of do them together. That's why a lot of people might bunch this in one. But for the sake of this course, because to get more depth, we split them up into two different courses: a BI course and a CI course. And if you do both courses, you might see overlaps, and there most probably are places where they overlap each other.
Now it's understandable, because I thought maybe it is completely different, but now I'm thinking when we speak about business intelligence, somewhere we'll have to speak about competitive advantage. Now we speak about the competitive intelligence. So I was a bit confused there.
I hear you. You see, when you're talking about BI, you're obviously going to do it for competitive advantage. I mean, you'd be silly to do BI not for it. I mean, it's an assumption, a general and mass assumption that you're doing it to be more competitive. But there are some companies where there's no competition. And they will still do BI to improve on their systems and their services. There are not many, but there are some unique companies out there. And also, they will still watch CI, because what's happening outside of their company, even if it's a direct competitor, let's say there's been a shift in the law. Maybe something's happened in the law. Maybe the ban on cigarettes has stopped. That might have an effect for a unique business. So you'll still be watching around, even though you don't have a direct competitor.
Okay.
Just maybe looking to grow your business, improve your business service offering. There are examples right now. I can't think of one straight off my head. There definitely are unique businesses out there that don't have competition. Maybe not a lot, but there are.
Okay, thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Billy, I just want to acknowledge your comment. Thank you for the very nice comment. I do appreciate it, and I'm glad you're learning. So yeah, I'm glad you're learning. Is there anything else? So let's just quickly, in a nutshell, just recap on a few things. I think we've spoken a lot about the different BI and CI. Just for opinion papers, please, I don't know if I stated it clearly in my study guide, I can't remember, but I do want to get Word documents. So if you hand it in a PDF, it's fine, I'll mark it, but please, in future, please hand in an MS Word document. It's just the reason why I use MS Word is that I can make comments and give you feedback. If you're worried that I change, some people think that I can change the work, then there's always an original document that you handed in that I can't change. So there's an original. So if you say, no, I never handed this work in to you, you can prove it, because there's an original that's there, and I can't change the original. I can only download it and view it, and so can you. So there's an original that's kept there. So please work in Microsoft Word, or Microsoft Word file, like a .docx file. You can use other software, but I wanted a Microsoft Word compatible file that I can edit and give you feedback in, copy and paste my mark sheet into. And then feedback, the opinion papers, closing of them is the end of Wednesday next week. It's sort of closed the link. So I kind of start marking in. So generally take about 2 weeks. I'll try and get it out to you before then. But generally before the next class, I like to have it marked The earlier I mark this, the better, because you can see where you go wrong to help you. So I will try my best to get it to you as soon as possible. The general turnaround time is anywhere between 12 and 14 days for me to mark them. And then please go and read the instructions for OP2. The instructions are available. They are online in the study guide in Blackboard. Read the instructions, only use my sources. So there's 3 things for success in this course. Read the lecturer's instructions, only use the given sources that are linked to the instructions, okay, and hand in on time. And that's your formula for success. Read the instructions, use my sources, hand in on time. If you follow that formula, you should definitely get good marks. But anyway, thank you guys. It's been fun. I know it's not that interactive this way, but I appreciate you making the sacrifice. And thank you for making the time to do it online. May this class and may this work we've been able to bring some good understanding. Good luck for your next. Please go and see the date for the next opinion paper. I'm not sure. I don't have the date right in front of me, but it's for your next class. Please go and check on the date for the next class. Please make sure that you stick to that and hand in on time. Without further ado, I wish you guys a pleasant evening, and I'll see you for our next class. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.